Hi there, my name's James White. I'm a sales trainer and mentor, and welcome to another series of my sales conversations with sales experts. So this week, as we still are on lockdown here in the UK, we're not able to travel around, which is more important because we're keeping people safe. I've had the privilege of having a guy join me on the conversation who's a real sales expert, been in sales all his life, brilliant what he does as a sales trainer and someone that helps lots of businesses now become better at selling. A guy called Matt Sykes, who's given us some great insights into selling, what he's learned over his career, and also more importantly about the impact that you can have with selling if you do the right things in the right way. So Matt's a guy I've come to know, really great guy, runs a great business. I'd certainly recommend you having a listen to his podcast as well, which is great. So let's get into the conversation with Matt Sykes and hear what Matt has to say about how you can get better sales results. So, good morning, everyone. Great to have a chance to do another sales conversations with sales experts. Normally in the car, obviously because of the lockdown, but I'm really lucky to be joined by Matt Sykes, who's with me over the waves. The Zoom connection is working well between Somerset and I think it's Norfolk, Matt, where you're based.
Yeah, I'm in Norwich,
so?
in Norwich, James. Yeah,
in Norwich, in fantastic. So fantastic. Thanks ever so much for being on the conversation, and look forward to sharing some of your insights and knowledge and what you've done. So, for those that don't know much about you, talk to people a little bit about who you are, a bit about your background, and you know how you've become a sales expert.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me on. Really enjoyed the stuff that you do. Been following you for a couple of years, probably stalking you and you didn't realise it, but it's always great to meet. And this wonderful thing about situations we find ourselves in, we can meet people that perhaps we have been putting off for a while. So a bit about me. So I spent most of my corporate career, James, working in the packaging industry. Went right from sort of sales rep right the way through to European sales director. Had a fantastic career, really enjoyed it. Spent a lot of time traveling around Europe. Enjoyed working with some really wonderful salespeople. Enjoyed the experience of being a sales director and coaching teams and all that kind of great stuff. But I kind of got to about 2012, 2013, and I started to get, I wouldn't say itchy feet. I started to get quite bored, perhaps, or slightly demotivated. And I started to think to myself, crikey, I'm cracking on a bit here. I'm mid-40s. I'm 52 now. So I'm going back 6-7 years. And I thought to myself, there's got to be more to life than just sitting in airports and sitting in these meetings, the usual yada yada that most people do in corporate. And I just always had this feeling in the back of my mind that I might be able to try and test myself and do something. So sort of mid-2014, a number of things happened sort of 2 years leading up to that, which got me to a point where I decided to step off and jump into the world of self-employment. I didn't kind of go full kill, James. I bought a franchise in a personal development training industry, spent 18 months, 2 years in that. And then around about 2016, I thought to myself, okay, this mindset stuff's really useful, but actually the people that probably need it more than most are salespeople. And my sort of background sort of directed me towards trying to link the two. So 2016, I created Sales Cadence, which is my sales training company, which is basically what I run today. And I'm really all about helping anybody who is in the mood to sell something to somebody without coming across like Jordan Belfort, but do it in a more empathetic and logical way. Because I actually think that selling, and you'll probably agree with me, James, it's one of those things that we can really cock up and make really complicated. And quite frankly, I don't think we need to do that. So I spend most of my time now helping people logically sell to others.
Fantastic. And we're going to talk about lots of these elements over the course of the conversation because we've definitely got some different elements. But what made you get into sales in the first place?
When I left school at 16, I mean, this is back in the Margaret Thatcher era, and the mantra in those days, James, was, look, don't worry about further education. That's a bridge too far for you, normal people. Go and get yourself a job and buy yourself a house. So at 16, I left school. And the very first job I got working in the shoe shop. And it was a baptism fire. I won't bore you with the story, but in principle, what happened in that short spell of time that I worked in the shoe shop was my eyes were opened up to this experience driven by my store manager, a guy called Mr. Barner, a wonderful guy. And he basically taught me how to sell by showing me how not to sell first, if that makes sense. He threw me in the deep end and went, there you go, son, over to you. Don't sell anyone any shoes. I want you to sell them those sundries over there, sell them those shoe trees. And so for the first week, I just had to make a right hash of it. but I learned a number of things, maybe we'll allude to later, which allowed me to realize, actually, this selling thing is really, really difficult. But just look what happens when you help people buy things. There's this kind of emotional experience that goes on between me, the seller, and you, the buyer. And I quite like that. So my first encounter really was at the age of 16.
So you mentioned about shoes. So my introduction to sales is exactly the same, but I was on a market stall. So from 11, I was 12 years old and literally selling shoes on a market stall on a Sunday morning. So I'm with you on the shoe front. I get it totally.
Yeah, well, you're trying to tell me that you didn't do the lemonade age 4 at the end of your street.
No, I didn't actually. I was a bit more, but no, we'll come on to I got just ironic that the two people that do sales training both got into selling shoes at an early age. So it was, but you're right, it was that emotional element, emotional attachment. And the guy that taught me was a guy called Chris Metty. I remember him saying, actually, it's not the thing that I remember him clearly saying to me, it's not the thing that you're selling. We were selling slippers that were $6.99 with these furry sides to these, to these elderly ladies. He said, it's not what you're selling. He said, it's how it makes her feel when she's in her armchair and she's got comfortable, slippers on her feet. And I was thinking, it's incredible, isn't it, what you learn in those early stages that then builds your future.
And the wonderful thing about that, James, of course, is that you and I both know that despite the fact the outside edges might have been blurred, and certainly what we're going through at the moment is creating quite a lot more blur, the fundamental principles of selling, which I believe is the second oldest profession ever, second only to prostitution, has never changed. And I don't think it ever will change. And, we've all got our own subtle nuances about how we get the message across, but ultimately it's about finding a problem, satisfying a need, and then helping someone solve their problem with what you sell.
It's such a great point you make there. And like you say, it hasn't changed. And yet, ironically enough, the term sales is seen as this quite dirty, horrible, cheesy element. And yet me and we both love it because we've been in this industry and we love what it means. But there's this whole concept, isn't there, about sales being this sort of thing. And why do you think that is?
I think there are a number of things, James. I think, first of all, I think people are lazy. I genuinely mean that in the way that I think people are too happy to accept the stereotype without digging further and delving a bit deeper. I have a podcast, and the mantra that runs through every single one of those episodes is everybody's in sales, we're all selling something. And if you ever needed a reason to realize how importantly true that message is, you're in it right now, called COVID-19. There's so many organizations are going, hang on a second, we haven't got any sales, or hang on a second, it's getting harder to sell to people. No sugar, Sherlock, because that's ultimately what this whole thing of selling is about, really, isn't it? And it's just really interesting. So I think the first thing is people can be a little bit too easy to fall under the stereotype. I think clearly an important point which we'll both resonate with, James, is that there have been probably too many people in the past who've kind of screwed it up for us. And then the third reason I think probably is there is still this legacy from the 1980s sort of, cold calling era. And again, that's a totally different topic. That's absolutely got its place, but there's this sort of hangover from the 1980s where you need to have the assumptive close and, all of those sort of mental gymnastics that go through the dark arts of selling. And actually you don't. If you're focusing all of your energy on some sophisticated closing technique, then I don't think you know how to sell. And if you are doing that, you're just making people who see you do it feel even more uncomfortable about the fact that this selling thing is something to be fearful of and not great. And actually it's the opposite. It's the most naturalist thing that you can do if you're willing to invest the time with people like you and I to know how to do it properly.
It's such a refreshing to hear you say that, Matt, because you're so right. It's so, when I do the mentoring for programs and I say to people, like, who doesn't like sales? And most people's hands go up. And then you start saying to them about actually what a good salesman, what makes it. We'll come on and talk about, your views and thoughts and but most people have this preconception that sales is about this gobby person that just wants to sell them stuff they don't like and they don't want. And actually, when you talk about it the other way around, you start talking about people that are serving, that are helping, that are solving problems, like you said, that give them value, that give them insights. People then go, yeah, I like that element. So
I always, as well, James, when people ask me this question, I always say to them, well, everybody's selling. If you think about the school kid, he's selling his parents on not doing the homework. If you think about the parents, they're selling themselves, their employer, about getting a pay rise or a promotion, or even in this world at the moment, trying to stay in a job. You think about the employer, they're trying to sell the vision, mission, and values of their organization to their employees. And all of those three people, the ability of them to exchange information in a way that works for the other person will have a significant impact on the result that they get back. And what we are describing there is the world of sales. So everybody's doing it, it's just that they don't realize it. So when people say to me, "Oh, salespeople, I don't fancy that," I just say, well, actually you are one, you just don't know it.
Love it. I love that. Actually, you are. So talk to me. Obviously, you went through your career in sales, and you were, like you say, you progressed from a salesperson to a European sort of sales director for a big firm. Talk to me about some of your biggest ever sales successes, and what were some of your biggest ever, like the most amazing things that you ever thought I love sales, and and also, is there a mistake you made that you thought, oh my god, I've got this is something I learned that will live with me forever?
Yeah, probably. So if I give you one from corporate and one from sort of the real world now, or self-employment, but in corporate, it was a really comfortable place for me, James, in so much as I was sort of protected from the harsh reality of selling. So I was went through sales rep, then I went into account management. Sometimes you hear the expression order taker, and I really resonate with that, because if you do nothing and an order turns up, you're called a salesperson, but actually you're not.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of shielded, if you like, from some of the really juicy stuff that you help your clients improve and be good at. But one win, I guess, I was a key account manager and negotiated a contract that went on for a 2.5-year contract. It was over 25 million quid. I won't mention the EBITDA, but it was double digit, and it was a brilliant deal, and it had all sorts of special bonus clauses in it and exchange rate mechanisms. It took me probably 9 months to close that deal, but the feeling of actually getting them to sign on the line was pretty euphoric. The reality, of course, is I couldn't have done that without the massive team around me. And, looking back, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that without the competition making my life hard for me. But that would be one thing. If I then contrast that with, the last 6 years, I have a client in the recruitment industry who's probably my biggest client. And it took me 3 years to land that deal with the managing director. He started off as a friend of a friend. I ended up playing golf with him, having a conversation. And to cut a long story short, because I was able to stay in the game, keep the relationship, just nudging it forward a little bit without selling, but knowing that there had to be an end point where I thought, I'm going to have your business. When that one dropped in, and it came right out, and this is the wonderful thing about what we do, James, is if you put the hard work in, all of a sudden it pays back. And I can remember getting a phone call. I was in a hospital, and I got a phone call at a really difficult time in my life, and it was the managing director saying, right, we need to do some business with you, so get your diary out, let's plump some dates in and get this thing moving. And I think those are two examples, I guess, of one where you're in the corporate world, one where you're in the personal world, but both are really important.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because when we talk to people, and we both talk to companies about selling, and when the 9 out of 10 things that don't happen, or the 7 out of 10, or whatever your stats are, your conversion rates are, but when you get the 1s or 2s that do, it makes up for everything, doesn't it? I mean, I always say to people, it's like when I win a deal, even now, I walk around like a peacock. I just sort of I just feel like I feel 9 foot tall.
Yeah, that is
that feeling, isn't it? It's an addiction. I say to me, it's a drug. I can't help it say it's a drug to feel that.
That's exactly what it is.
And obviously, winning those bits of business, like you say, I think I'll come on and talk about a couple of those in a moment, because I think what you said in both of those areas around persistence and ability to stay the course, which is what a lot of salespeople don't do. But talk to us about mistakes. Is there any time in your career where you've made a mistake in a deal, or what did I do that for? And you look back afterwards and thought,
well, if I go right back to that shoe shop experience, that was probably the biggest mistake. How can you make a mistake if you don't know what you're doing? I get that, but if I use that as an example to explain some of the mistakes that I've learned from, trying to sell someone a pair of shoe trees with a closed question, do you want to buy some shoe trees, is never going to work. Until we create that emotional experience that you talked about, James, and until we provide a reason, and this is why it's so logical. No problem, no sale. So until I can create that problem in that person's mind that they need a pair of shoe trees, why on earth would I ever assume they're going to buy them? But that's the naivety of a 16-year-old. I remember, if I bring it up a little bit closer to home, and this is I say this quite a lot, and I have no problem with saying this to my crowd, because I'm so okay with being vulnerable. because I think that's part of what I do with people I work with. But I can remember literally the first week of jumping into self-employment, and my best friend had arranged a pub sit-down conversation with this head of this pretty large part of an IT company. And he said, "Oh, you need to go and meet this guy. He's great. He'll want your stuff. Just go in there and you'll close him in seconds." Now, bearing in mind, James, I'd come from the fluffy world of account management, sales director, didn't really get my hands dirty with building new relationships. I was all about retaining business and sort of, stopping business from going out the door by looking after existing clients. The world of finding new business wasn't all that big part of my life. So here I am about to go into a situation with a complete stranger, and it was a car crash. If I had a set of slides, I'd have got him out and showed him. It was that corporate, the way that I spoke to a guy over a beer in a pub. It was like the most embarrassing thing ever. And I drove away from that and I thought, actually, you can forget having these titles called sales directors, because they mean nothing if you don't know what to do and when to do it. And I literally spent the next 3 months going back to sales school and saying, right, the stuff I must have learned 18 years ago when I first came into this industry, I need to go back and learn that stuff again, because I think I've forgotten it. But pretty quickly we pick it up again. But it was a bit of a shuddery moment, I can assure you.
It's brilliant, and again, I think what you just said there is so right. One of my things that I have on my office in not this at my home office, but my work office is, Michelangelo, 87. I'm still learning, and I say to people exactly that all the time. I think if you're a salesperson, even if you're a sales mentor or trainer, and you stop learning, you're done. You're cooked. The moment we all go, actually, I know it all, and I see it. I'm sure you do. When I go into meeting rooms and presentations and training sessions, and I see someone in sales there who's been in sales for a while, going, "I don't need this shit," and I literally go and I think to myself, you're cooked before you start.
You're done, and you'll see it a lot. I see it a lot. In fact, it's interesting as well. I mentioned that second book, and literally finished it last night, and re-editing over the last couple of days, and the chapter on sort of objections. I actually included an objection that happened to me 3 weeks ago. So here I am working with a large client base, doing okay, teaching people how to sell, and I still get objections. Now I don't get anywhere near as many as I used to, but anybody out there, and I don't care who you are, if you don't think if you think you've cracked it, it's over.
It's such a good point, and it's so true. And I think that humbleness around, I always say to people, I have a humble confidence, have a confidence in who you are and what you're about, but be humble, be able to go and say, what can I learn from Matt? What can I learn from Simon? What from Paul, from Tom, whoever, Jan, whoever it is, what can I take from that person that can adjust in what I do? And I think you're right. It makes a massive difference. Talking about, you like to make in your career, and you've seen it, what do you think are, and especially the businesses, thinking of what you do now with Sales Cadence and the business now, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes you see salespeople or business owners make? And we talked about sort of, you're in rooms with people. What do you think some of those major mistakes are?
I think probably the biggest mistake I see people make is they wing it. And what I mean by that, and obviously that's a very generic phrase to say, but I think they fall into the trap of making mistakes because they don't have a process. So I'm very much about helping clients understand this sort of logical 9-10 step process that people go through. And if you have a process, James, as you know, first of all, you've got the chance of sticking to it. Second of all, you've got the opportunity of pulling people back into it when it starts going a little bit helter-skelter, which it always does, because we don't sell in an ideal world, and buyers have this wonderful habit of taking you in different directions, and some of them are trained to do that. But I think if you have a process, you can always bring people back. And I think the other thing about having a process is when it goes wrong, and it does, you get the chance to go back and see, well, which part of the process did I screw up there then, and what could I learn from it, and how can I improve things? So I might have given you more of a general answer to your question, but I think the big mistake I see people doing at the moment is winging it, and a variety of different things, like they'll go steaming straight in. They'll think they've diagnosed the person's problem because they've got the first answer, or someone rings you up and says, I want some negotiation training, and they go, great, we've got that 2-day course for you right here, and actually they don't need negotiation training at all. Prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. You've got to keep pushing back and asking the question, well, why do you need it? What is it about negotiation that's not working for you? How did that happen? All the usual stuff that we do, James. So I think my honest answer to you would be, I think people should have a process to stop them from just winging it, basically.
It's a brilliant point, and you're right. And I think when you see sports, when I said to people, you see sports people, you know, you and me, but some things are golfers. You know, you watch Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods or any of these guys. You know, maybe even someone that's, you know, new to a, you know, what is it? You know, Gary Woodland won his first major last year, or someone's winning their first major. You know, and the mental coaches are saying to them, you know, that shot down the 18th where you've got to be on the green and get up and down in two is no different to what you've done hundreds of times before. Or the only thing that affects is the mental element to it. So therefore, if they start thinking back to where they were practicing and doing what they did before, they'll probably do the shot. They probably it's when they let other things get into it. It's that practice, isn't it?
That point is hugely important as well. Practice, because you know, I don't know about you, but I'm quite okay with bringing role play in with my clients. Okay, because we both know that without the accountability and practice, then sometimes you don't get the results that you want for your client. So I'm quite keen on getting people to do role play in the right environment. And when everyone says, oh, no, I don't want to do role play, and you go, well, when was the last time you ever saw a pro golfer or a professional football player or any professional athlete practicing on match day? Because if you don't practice in the comfort and the safety of your own office, just imagine where you will be practicing. It will be in the office of your buyer or your prospect. And if that goes wrong, you've kind of blown it. So practice is hugely important.
It's such a great point. Such a great point. I use a lot of role play, or I, you know, practice scenarios, I call them. I say, I'll be the most difficult person who's ever going to come at an objection with you. But when you've gone through that with me, chances are you'll never get anyone as bad as me. So it's a bit like when you've been to that point,
yeah,
it's easy from there, isn't it? So if I'm the hardest person and I'm an arsehole to you, excuse me, a French, on the phone, and we're having a conversation, I really treat you terribly, and you deal with that, you're just going to think of any other person as a walk in the park.
Agreed.
No, it's great. So in terms of, you know, obviously people make mistakes around winging it, but, and I think you're quite right there, but what in terms of skills of sales, you know, there's always a skill around selling and being able to engage and understand people. And I talked about, you know, understanding being key. Do you think, you know, people that you work with and you see, and that you, not so much you work with, but you talk to, they focus too much on the end point rather than the journey? Would you agree? Is it, you know, they focus on trying to get to the deal rather than understanding really what's going on with the people they're engaging with?
Yeah, and it's a great point you make, because actually the right place to focus is the end, but it's the end because you focus on what the buyer wants to get out at the end rather than what you want to get out. So I'm a big believer in focusing on right at the end before you start, but focusing on what they want. In terms of sort of things that help, I guess, is empathy is massive, right? A lot of the work that I took from sort of my franchise in personal development is so akin with what we do in selling. Empathy is a massive word. Understanding the benefits that come with empathy, not just to the other person, but to you as a salesperson, are massive. And if people stop and reflect and think to themselves, right, if I'm more empathetic in my sales conversations, and that means I've got to put myself in somebody else's shoes, what's in it for me? Because let's be honest about it, most of us will do things once, but if there's something in it for us, we might do it again. The benefit that we get from empathy is if we lean into a conversation and we really get curious about what they're after and what their problems are, we learn more. If we learn more, we get to shorten the time we spend in diagnosis if we do it properly. So we actually can buy back a bit of time if we're more empathetic. You know, we can shorten them. Imagine in corporate world, well, not today because no one's at work, but when this thing gets over and everyone goes back to work, just imagine what would happen, James, to corporate meetings. You know, if everybody played the empathy game, which is, look, I know you're in the room with a problem or a challenge or an issue that you want to raise, and I've got one too. Tell you what, you go first, and then I'll go. But what normally happens is everyone goes, and then everyone's butting in, and the thing goes on forever, and before you know it, you've just wasted 4 hours of your life. So I think empathy is a really important skill. And the more that we can genuinely be interested in the other person, the more I think that helps us with the things that then follow on, which is, okay, disqualification is now important for me. I want to make sure that the person in front of me, who probably isn't my ideal customer, actually, I've just got to make sure that is the case. I'll ask them a load of questions and I'll disqualify them out. Because if I can get people out, as we know, and free up the space in our pipeline for people that are right for us, then I can ask some other questions to qualify these people in, and away we go. So I think it starts with getting that trust from empathy first.
Yeah, great. Some great points. Totally, 100% agree. Thinking of, you know, thinking of other people rather than yourselves is such a massive factor for people to get wrong. Like you say, they get in their minds that it's all about, I say to people, the models that I use, that you've got, yes, you've got to have a story. You've got to be able to tell what your story is, and you've got to be able to make people, I use a model like sales like dating. I say, if you go on a date and your date, you don't say anything and so I don't have anything to say, you're not going to get a second date. But the other aspect of it is it's not about you. And too many, people, I think, focus on what's right for them.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what I was saying before about the program that we mentioned, that, too many people are at the pitch. Look how great I am. Look how amazing I am. And I say to people, prospects don't give a toss about that. What they actually care about is, what are you going to do to make their life a better place? Yeah. What are you going to do to make their world, like you say, the problem that they've got, go away? Because when you do that, people go, you've got to talk to this person. You've made my things happen, so much better for me.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah, it's good. But so talk to me about what your influences. I know you mentioned that the man in the shop that was obviously, but who else has influenced Mr. Barnett? Yeah, Mr. Barnett. Who else has influenced you over your sales career and life, and who's been a real sort of valuable mentor, or maybe they mentored you directly, but they were someone you really looked up to and thought they've given me a lot of advice from a sales perspective over the years?
Loads. I'll give you a few. So my very first sales boss in corporate world was a guy called Ray Foley, and lovely guy from up in Hull. He taught me a number of things, James, but the one thing that always sticks with me is he's saying, one day older, one day colder, right? And that was what have you done with that meeting? Where are you going next? What's happening? Tell me and he was like he's like a dog with a bone, but so important that to bring that accountability and that persistence and that frequency. So Ray was the first guy who was a bit of an inspiration to me. And then I sort of think, if I think about the virtual world of people that I've yet to meet, or people that I probably experience a lot of their content, there's a New Zealand marketing guy called Sean D'Souza. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Okay.
So Sean D'Souza is a wonderful guy. He's an Indian guy based in New Zealand, and he very much brought up from the marketing world. So worked for Ogilvy and people like that. And he's got a fantastic podcast, well worth checking out, called The 3-Month Vacation. And it's beautiful because it's a podcast that really is a story, and there's music, and it takes you on a little 30-minute journey. But one of the great things about what Sean teaches is he teaches this thing called the 7 bags. And I won't share the story in too much detail, other than to say that the 7 bags represent the 7 steps in his world of the buying process. And he talks about 7 bags coming off a conveyor belt in an airport departure lounge. And he says the only time you leave the departure lounge or the baggage hall is when you've got all your 7 bags. Because if you left with 6, you'd be stupid, wouldn't you? And you think, yeah. He said, well, it's exactly the same for buyers. Until you've taken the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th bag off, they won't buy from you. And the second bag, James, is the problem. And the third bag is the solution. And I think that is so crucial in our world. Too many people, and you'll see it a lot, push, as you've already alluded to, mate, they push their solution before they've even worked out what the person's problem is. And that's why they don't get results. So Sean D'Souza is something worth checking out. And if I bring it right up to sort of today, if I think about the world that you and I spend a lot of our time in when we're walking around ourselves, or we're in the car, or whatever it is we're doing, and we're listening to people, audio books, then Anthony Iannarino, for me, is best in class. I don't think there's anybody in the sales industry who's as in a place where he is right now. And if you think about his last book, Eat Their Lunch, level 4 value creation, just off the charts in terms of, if you could give anybody advice in coronavirus times right now, James, it would probably be aspire to be level 4. What is going to happen in the next 12 months? What are the trends going to be? Find that out, and then go and pick up the phone and ring up your clients and say, I want to come and talk to you. I've got an idea about what I think is going to happen in the market. I'd like to know what you want to think about it, but let's have 20 minutes and talk about it. I think at the moment there's no one better than him.
It's a really great point. Actually, I don't know about you, but I was booked to go to Outbound in June, so I'm due to go in August. Yeah, well, I'm still going in August at the moment, so I'm out. For those who don't know, Outbound is a sales conference that Anthony Iannarino and Jeb Blount, as you know, I'm sure you know Jeb Blount stuff as well, which I really like, and lots of good stuff in there. And I'm still due to go in August. Whether I'm going to go or not is a bit up in the air, but we'll see.
Next year for me, probably, I think.
I think it's something that I've, it goes back to the thing of what we were saying, that we've all got to learn, we've all got to evolve, we've all got to look at different ways of improving what we do and picking things up and knowing we're wrong. I mean, I say, well, I'm happy to admit I'm wrong. I'm happy to admit that I might have said something before that actually, do you know what, I changed my mind, because you admit you're wrong if you based upon your facts and what works and what evolves. And we know this. I posted something on LinkedIn this morning that, I don't know if you saw yesterday, one of my clients is in in the financial trading space, and the price of oil went below. Yeah, well, they're hiring, which is great, but they work within the price of oil went below. It was free. But the price of oil had the value of water yesterday, which is ridiculous. So it's as lowest as it's ever gone in since 1946. Basically, in America now, the price of oil is literally can't give it away. And I was saying to people that it's not. The world isn't going to go back to where it was. We are in a new phase now. And what we've got to do is evolve and look at how we adjust our work and what we do. So that means I can't sit here as a sales mentor and think, oh, I know this stuff. I've got to think about how the world is going to change, how buyers are going to buy, how people are going to think. I've got to get myself into that and work out that stuff. So, but it's interesting you mentioned around, obviously as a sales mentor, you probably get a lot of people, your clients saying to you, Matt, what do I do about selling in the current climate? What should I do? Should I not do? I mean, what advice are you giving people right now who are going through these challenging times and are sort of in a bit of a, they're not sure about things? What advice are you giving them?
The advice I'm giving them, James, is again, we'll go back to that word empathy. That's really important. Just pick up the phone, book a Zoom call, and just find out what's going on in their world. I think we sometimes forget, don't we, that our most important clients are the clients that we've worked with already. They're the ones that actually have invested their money in us. So actually, we do owe them a debt of gratitude for that. And I've been saying to my clients, pick up the phone and thank the people that have helped you out, that have got you this far. Because if you hadn't had their business, you probably wouldn't be where you are. And it might sound a bit cliche, but I think it's quite an important point, because I don't know about you. I've never used the phone so much in my life. Those first 2 or 3 weeks when I was sort of working out for myself, okay, what happens next? What's going to happen to training in the future? Do I need to do this pivot thing? Have I got to go and create this online course? All the things that trainers will be thinking about, probably yourself as well. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and find out what my customer wants and what they think, because what I want to do is irrelevant. It's what they want from me that probably makes sense. So the first thing I've been saying to people is pick up the phone and go and talk to your customers and find out what they want. Then the second thing is wherever you can, offer to help. And again, I don't know the answer to this, James. It'd be interesting to know what your point is. There is a lot of people, especially on LinkedIn, who are offering help for free. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I sometimes wonder what the agenda is there. Are you genuinely offering to help? Great, that's fine, no problem. But are you actually trying to find a way of leading yourself in there, or maybe from desperation, where you're just trying to find if there's an angle where you can start to get in there and sell? Because the last thing I think that we should be doing right now, whilst it's not to stop selling, keep selling. There's a ton of problems out there. There's more problems now than there ever has been. So if there was ever a time to sell, it's right now. But you've got to sell for the right reasons. And I think offering to speak to people, getting their take on what's going on, offering some advice. I'm doing the same with all of my existing clients. Half an hour jump on, and I'll do whatever I can to help. Pick my brains. It's all yours. I think after that, I don't know, other than the fact it's time then to take that information that you've gleaned and say, right, what am I going to do myself moving forward? Because again, interesting to know your thoughts on this one. I don't think that the world of training in training rooms is ever going to change. That's the world that I live in right now. Do I think there's going to be a desire for online training? If I'm honest, I don't think so, because I don't think anyone's ever invented one that's actually worked for me. It's too generic. I don't get the opportunity to put my hand up and ask a question and challenge back. And it's when I'm challenging back, or when I'm being challenged by a room full of salespeople, that I'm at my best and I can give even more value. So it's interesting to know what to do next. If I'm honest with you, I haven't quite yet worked out the answer. So it'd be good to know what your thoughts are.
It's a really good. So I think you're bang on the money with the first point about talking to people. So I did a webinar to a number of groups of 7 things not to do. And one of the things I said to people was don't just sit there and do nothing and put your head in the sand. I use a term which you don't email the fire brigade if your house is on fire. So actually, get on the phone and talk to people. Like you said, get on the phone, talk to them, and ask them about and don't think you know it all, because exactly it. We don't know it all. We don't know what's going on in their world, in their environments. Like I say, I've got clients of mine at the moment who are literally going to be adding 4 salespeople to their team because their business has doubled in the last 12 months. They're in the financial trading market. They are literally seeing business double as a result of what's going on. So I think that's huge. I think the element around what to do is actually, I say to people, I think COVID-19 is finding people out, as we talked about briefly at the start, that just want to sell quickly and easily without there being a structure to it. So I go back to the best salespeople to me are value creators, they're educators. They're people that give people something that makes them go, oh, that's really useful, that's helpful, I didn't know that, or I'm intrigued by that, tell me more about that. That they create, Henry Ford always said, if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse. So yes. What these people have got to do is go and, like you say, look at the markets they're in, try and predict where the future is going to be. Try and if you've got a client and you're seeing that client, that market space has changed for them, and you can spend half hour with them talking through what might happen. How could drones affect your business? How could artificial intelligence, robotics, all these things, and you spend that time with them, they're going to see you as a value. So then they're going to say, well, actually, I'm going to want to talk to Matt because he adds value to my process, and I'm going to and I accept that that time is valuable to have with him, and therefore I accept he's going to, I might need to pay for that time. Yeah. So I think people are going to want to see those that add value into the process even more useful than ever before, and that value comes from insights. And then that's where I go back to the idea of sharing content. So if you've got that content, you've got that insight, share it, make it available, make it freely available for people. So
just as well, such a great point you make there as well on content. That's so important, and it's sort of a message to anybody who's watching this who probably has been putting off sort of developing their brand and building some content. Now is the time to do that. I was on a webinar with, I don't know what, actually it was with Daniel Priestley, the guy we were talking about, and he said, no, it's Nick Rickson, I apologize. With Nick Rickson, he said, you've got 18 months before video becomes boring, right? I thought, well, hang on a second, because he said there was something new going to come along as a result of us all getting into this technology stuff that's going on right now. So hopefully you've been doing video for a long time. You have, James. I haven't really, but we've got 18 months less before the next thing comes up. So sort of a message to anybody watching this is, really sit down. Now's the time to start thinking about things like content and brand. But just really quickly, I want to make one point. When you reach out to your clients and your customers, I rang one of mine up this morning because I was thinking about investing in some software to improve the sort of the user experience with my clients. Something that I could blend in with face-to-face training. And I picked up the phone to one of my sales directors. I've got 2 other calls with other ones this afternoon because I want their opinion on whether or not I should be making this investment in my company. Why? Because they're the ones that are going to use it, not me. And if I don't get that information, then I'll probably make the wrong decision. So there's also this other angle, which is reach out to your customers and say, look, here's what I'm experiencing as well. What do you think about my business now? I think you can get some great feedback that way too.
It's a really good point. It's a brilliant point about, your customers are your biggest source of inspiration and the people that you can do a lot of things with. And I think the other point you said at the start, which is really important, is that, there's this mindset. I think the first thing I said to people was the mindset that people aren't buying. There was a great study, and I shared it on the back, and I'll share the slide actually around Captify that showed, there are certain industries that have dropped like a stone. But there are other industries that have seen incredible amounts of growth. So a great example, I was on a call with someone the other day, and they said that there was a company based in the southwest where I am who service engines for planes. Well, they've just literally trebled their staff over the course of the last, because whilst planes are flat on the ground, they're servicing more. So I know it's like in anything, out of every problem, there is a positive or a solution if there's something coming out of it. And the question is, I said to people, I was talking to a guy this morning, same thing. I said, what can you do that can evolve what you do to make something happen? And there's a great example I use of a lady who, I did some work with her. She did some of my events. Her events business gone completely to shit. So literally she is in a position where her business has died away. She could have put her head in the sand. First thing is mindset, as we all know, and I want to talk about mindset in a moment with you because that's key. But she then could have said, "Oh, it's all gone." No, she's reinvented herself and is now focused on. And I pay her monthly because she runs my webinars for me. So for me, I don't want the hassle of that. She does that service. So it's about looking at things honestly in that way, isn't it? And, but
again, it's great having this conversation because sparking so many points for me as well, which is sometimes we forget, especially as self-employed folk, James, sometimes we forget what we've learned in the time that we've been working for ourselves and massive mistakes we've made and the huge learning curves that come as a consequence of that. But I've never been more creative in my life at 52. You know, I was never like this when I was working in corporate. Imagine what I could be like if I jumped back into that world now. But, you know, what we sometimes forget is the stuff that we've learned that we don't normally value. Maybe now is the time to think about valuing that. You know, if you do host webinars, then go and sell that skill to other people who want to host a webinar, right? If you know how to run a podcast, go and sell how you do that. You know, if you know how to write a book, go and teach people out all the stuff that we sort of have learned as entrepreneurs, as salespeople, as self-employed people. Let's not forget that sort of, as Daniel Priestley says, that mountain of assets that we stand on, because actually you can probably make a sale out of some of that stuff.
And Jason Grace, I don't know if you know Jason, he's a really, really good example. I know Jason well. I did a sales conversations with Jason a couple of weeks ago. And Jason's a classic example of someone who built his life and achieved, you know, came into trading, achieved financial freedom, and is now teaching other people to build financial freedom. And I don't know if you've had a look at his Tiers of Freedom program. I highly recommend it.
I'll have a look after this.
He's got a podcast called Always Free. It's just great. It's all about money management and money wealth. And again, people look at the current times now and go, actually, do you know what? There's a guy talking a lot of sense about stuff. Jason's first thing that Jason will say is, you know, stem the tide, cut rid of the things that you don't need to spend. And what are people doing right now because of COVID? They're saying, right, I'm not needing that and I'm not needing that. So it's lots of stuff there that work.
Correction, isn't it? It's a correction.
Exactly that. So just a couple of other things, you know, I'm conscious we're getting to the end of the sort of session, but when you hit a sale, you know, you talk about mindset, and mindset is when you bought into the franchise and developed a lot of things. When you hit sales slumps or slumps in your career, how big important was mindset for you in be able to transform yourself out of where you were into the, you know, into this, no, I've got to make this happen? And how do you think other people deal with it now? Because I think you mentioned at the start that your business focuses on mindset, and it is just so pivotal to people's success, isn't it?
It's massive. Absolutely. If there was one skill that I would share with anybody for free, it would be understanding how this thing works and the challenge it can bring you without you realizing it, but the benefit that you can get if you're willing to just invest a bit of time. This is, as you know, James, a skill like every other skill. It's as much a skill as asking great questions is. When you get to understand, and I'm no psychologist and I never claim to be one, but I know enough about human psychology to know that actually we don't do things until we think about them first. You know, we have a thought about something, and let's say, for example, coronavirus is a perfect example. We're sitting at home, we're thinking to ourselves, this is just like pants. I mean, I am doomed. I am never gonna, this is over. I need to start really shutting things down. If we're willing to accept that the way that we think impacts how we feel and the emotional context that we create for ourselves, then the sorts of feelings that are going to come off a thought about it's over, I'm doomed, you can imagine those emotions are going to be pretty drastic and dire. And those emotions then have an impact in what we do, and they drive our behavior. So if we're not thinking constructively and we're feeling pretty low and desperate, and that's all okay, by the way, but if we're not thinking correctly and we're not feeling, you know, motivated, the chances are we probably won't do stuff, or we might not do it as well as we could. And of course, it's our behavior that drives our outcomes. So when you grasp that kind of circle, which is we think, we feel, we behave, and we get results, and then we think about those results and we go again, if you're willing to invest some time to learn how to point this thing, not in a kind of a woo-woo, Tony Robbins, great guy, don't get me wrong, but in a little bit weird kind of way, but more in a constructive way. And it could be something as simple as, okay, coronavirus is here. What are some of the things that I want to achieve over the next week? You know, and I'll list them. Right, if I focus on those 3 or 4 things for this week, And as long as those 3 or 4 things have got a tangible benefit at the end of them, so there's a sort of a law of attraction thing going on, I'll probably spend more time on those. So for me, mindset is really, really important. It's a phrase, James, that sometimes gets bandied about a lot without people really understanding the meaning. You can't think and grow rich, but you can certainly think and do the behaviors that allow you to grow rich. And I think that's the key message out of all of this, really.
It's great to hear, and I have to say I've actually, I wouldn't say lost some friends during the last couple of weeks, but I've probably adjusted my relationships with a few people who they're still friends, and I still love them for who they are and what they've brought to me in my life. But exactly, I had a major issue and conversation with 2 guys who were basically commenting on a situation that one of them's in, and I won't describe the person. They might be watching. I know they watched one of my videos, but they were saying that that they're where they're at, and I said, no, you have a choice. You have a choice in life. You have a choice. Whether you like where you're at right now or not. No, and they're like, I don't have a choice. I have to do this. No. Let's go back to the basics. You have a choice of what we do. You might decide that you don't want to put up with the sacrifices that choice gives you, but don't tell me you can't have a choice to do something different, because you can. And I said to them, there is lots of things you can do. There's lots of things you can make happen as a result of it. But if my dad always used to say to me, and he was a sales director, and he got me, you program the big computer in your head to do the things you want to do. And I was like, if you say to yourself you haven't got choice and the world's ending and life's going to be shit, it's going to be shit, yeah? Or if you say, actually, I'm going to come out the other side, I'm not going to let this fight, I'm going to do what I can. And it's so, I get quite frustrated by people that want to blame, and they, and I don't know if David Goggins is a person that I don't know if his accountability mirror is someone I say to a lot, look at yourself in the mirror and say, whose fault is it? Because it isn't someone else's.
It's interesting, very close to certainly probably both of us at the moment is this issue of salespeople. Let's say there's a bunch of people who are furloughed right now and they'll call them salespeople. You tell me what is the difference between Jack and Jill, right? Jack is using the furlough time to sit at home, immerse himself in his family, watch Netflix, bit of decorating, but he's going to go nowhere near the world called work. And Jill is doing all that stuff, but she's also decided to do some online training or read a book or find a way of hooking up with a one-to-one sales coach and do some Zoom stuff. What is the difference between those 2 people if they're both on the same money, working in the same company at 80% furloughed? One has an attitude where they don't really want to progress and develop, and that's okay. And the other one has one that is essentially down to the fact that I do want to progress. The difference between the 2 is mindset.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to coach that mindset, again, because not everybody wants that. There's nothing wrong with sitting at home and doing the furlough thing and just riding it out. That's cool. But if you want to progress in life, what I've learned is there's a percentage of society that wants to do that. It's the sort of nature and nurture. This is probably more of the nature side of that. There's a certain persona in society that says, for example, when I go and sit in one of James's training rooms, I'm going to be one of those 10% who's going to leave here taking away something and then absolutely going to go and do it. And I might even keep his contact details and ask him in 30 days' time, give me some more stuff. Not everybody's like that, but what differentiates one from another, I genuinely believe, is this thing called, their attitude.
It's so much on the money. I get accused of being quite sad. I mean, there was an image around. I say to people, if you love what you do, you won't put time limits on when you do it. And actually, I was doing some work for last Saturday night at 9 o'clock, and someone said, "What you do?" And I said, "I'm doing some work." And they're like, "You're sad." I'm like, "All right, okay. Well, I don't give a shit what you think." Because being blunt, I might be sad, but you know what? It's what I quite enjoyed at the time. It was what I wanted to do at the time. And guess what? Last Thursday afternoon or last Wednesday afternoon, I had 3 hours off to do what I want because that's my choice. And it's that element of if you enjoy what you do, so it makes a real big difference. But
just that last point, so that sort of the viewers can sort of take away something tangible in terms of sales and mindset. If you're willing to accept that model that we think, and it's our thoughts that creates our emotions, the knowledge bomb there is we can never feel sales rejection again. Not unless we decide to experience that rejection. So whatever prospect says to me in terms of a no or they have an objection, your words, I get to choose how I feel about what it is they've done or said. that is massively powerful when you realize you will never, ever experience sales rejection again if you're willing to train this thing so that it's nothing other than just words.
It's a great point, and it's about control. I always say to people about sales, put yourself in control of the situation. So ultimately, I can't control what other people do. I can't control what someone else does because that's their mind and their world, and it's, you know, we're not in that position. All I can do is control me and how I operate and what I do. And if I'm in control of what I say and what I do and what I act and how I behave and what I send and what I create and all those other things, that's all that matters. And you're right, it's about putting ourselves in, you know, and I say if you can't control it, why worry about it? What's the point? Because you're going to let it kill you. So you know, it's been great to talk through things, you know, with you and share your story. I've really enjoyed it. And if I, you know, a couple of things in terms of if I was to ask you to, you know, sit yourself down 10 years ago and sort of look and sort of say to, you know, when Matt, you were at that stage, maybe, you know, maybe late 30s, I'll give 15 years ago. What would you tell yourself now that, you know, what would be your advice that you'd give your younger self?
It's a really good question. I think the advice I'd give to my younger self is not to change too much. I think the only thing I would really insist I'd do more of is build a network. I'd be fanatical about creating a massive network of opportunity for people. Because, you know, if there's one thing that I probably believe more than most these days, you can have the best product in the world and the best solution to someone's problem, but if they don't know of you and you haven't got that ability to sort of reach out into the marketplace, then you're never going to do as well, or you're never going to get that value exchange that your brilliant product or service could help people with if you can't get in front of enough people. So I guess the first thing really would be to say, 15 years ago, Matt, start growing your network on, whether LinkedIn was around then, James, it probably wasn't, but whatever was the thing to do, get your little Rolodex out and start making as many contacts as you can. Because what will happen in 15 years' time is it will explode your ability to help more people.
Great point. And it also goes back to that point of also being interested in other people, isn't it? A lot of people look at someone and say, I don't want to talk to that person because they make a judgment. Whereas actually most of us in salespeople will look and say, hey, I'm not going to go to that person with the intention of trying to get something from them, but let me understand them. Let me talk to, oh, wow, you do that, do you? Okay, I don't know anyone that does that. And then suddenly you hear something in the future, don't you, about something, and someone says, oh, I need that service. And you think, I can connect those people up. You connect them up and suddenly you're a hero for connecting them. So just by your mindset being open to listening to them.
Yeah, absolutely right.
It's brilliant. So, and in terms of like, you know, your work, where you see your future going, and what, you know, obviously the world at the moment we all know is a bit uncertain, but you know, going on that Peter Drucker quote of the best way to predict the future is to create it. What do you think? You know, I believe personally that's why I love doing these conversations with other people, because sometimes people say to me, well, wait, I think there is an absolute massive need for more people like you and me to some extent, and all of us, to get out there and share how to do this with people. Because I think the biggest challenge we have is that sales is people showing that they don't understand selling properly and they don't understand how to do it effectively. And I think that's the biggest factor that we've got, is to get our messages, what you shared and talked about here, and getting that amplified to as many people as possible to focus on the problem, to focus on the solutions, isn't it? And is that what you're passionate about doing over the next 12 to 18 months?
I think it's a bit of a trite phrase, but I think I found my calling. You know, like you, James, I love the subject matter. You know, I can honestly say, hand on heart, I did the calculation the other day and put it in the book. I can honestly say that with the exception of Christmas Day and probably New Year's Day, I have spent every day of the last 6 years with something in my ears or reading something about the world of selling, right? Most of it's been pretty damn good stuff, yet the odd howler, and some of those I've probably created myself. But for me, I think that, you know, the sort of the key thing is, I actually believe that more than ever now, people need to know how to help people solve problems. And in the commercial world, that means creating the opportunity where someone can buy from you. And my calling really, and my passion is, and maybe this is a good opportunity for me to pause and reflect, and I've done that over the last few weeks, about who my future ideal customer is. Because up until now, it's been a sales director who's got a team of salespeople who he's trying to sort of encourage to be even better than they currently are. And I don't think I'll ever change that as being a focal point of who I try and help. But I suddenly realized that actually there's a whole massive market of people over there who are sole traders without stepping into your space, but a little bit closer to where you are, which is helping small businesses. Because I think, first of all, I think their pain is more real. They're not shrouded by this comfort of large salaries and bonuses. They've got real, their feet are really held to the fire. I think the second thing is they genuinely want to know how they can get more people engaged in their product or service because they're damn excited about it. So why can't they translate that excitement to the other person? And I think the third thing, and this is the holy grail for what you and I do, mate, I think you get more accountability where the problem is the biggest. You know, and the people that are small businesses, sole traders, entrepreneurs, people who are starting out, and bearing in mind what this massive influx of millennials coming onto the marketplace, that will continue. Maybe there's more of an opportunity to help the new generation coming through to learn how to sell. Because I guess my last point would be, and I've got a son who's 19 years old, he's a great kid, really good guy, growing up to be a fantastic human being, but all he's ever known really is the 6 inches of glass in front of his face. And I worry a little bit that there's a whole army of people coming through now who probably don't have quite the people skills that you and I have got. And so maybe there's an opportunity there to try and help those people too.
Amen to that. I'm tell what I'm going to do is, it's really interesting you mentioned there's a lovely lady called Kristen who runs a company, works for a company called ScanSource in America, and I knew Kristen from my time at 3Com. I was having a conversation with her when I was due to go out in America. We were going to meet up and talk about exactly that same point around how the communication gap between the millennials versus actually what, you know, our generation, let's call it, a bit older, is exactly that. So I think that's, you're on the money there. I think there's an absolute big gap between what, you know, because they're used to sort of message, you know, I have this in, you know, with different people, and, you know, Alex, who does my videos, a great guy, but, you know, I'll say to him about something, I've WhatsApped you or I've DM'd you, not, which is different to our way of doing things, which was a more structured email or call. So I think you're right. How do we make that gap link? Because I always do say to people, the best thing about sales, and I'm passionate about it, is because the companies I'm working with right now are hiring. Sales will be the last bastion to go. Like you said, it was the second after prostitution. And artificial intelligence and robotics will be because the moment you get a robot that literally acts exactly like a human with empathy, like you've talked about, we're in some weird stuff, we're in some different, interesting times, aren't we? You get a robot. So I think sales is the last bastion to go. So I say to people, become a salesperson, because if you do it well, you can have a career for the next 10 years.
I would, but I'm also going to ask you to agree on this point as well, which is if you're really good at that, you will be okay. What coronavirus is doing at the moment, though, is it's going to clear and wipe out a whole army of salespeople who aren't adding value, either to their employer or to their organization, their employer or to their customer. And you know, whilst I don't wish that upon anybody, what I would say to people is, if you feel you might be vulnerable right now, I mean, I saw a fascinating article in the Telegraph yesterday about the car industry and how it's decimated, you know, and this whole model they've got where they ship bits of metal across and you just have to sell them, and you see these fields of cars everywhere. How this has really brought everything home to roost in an industry that makes less than 1-2% of EBITDA. They've now realized they've got to change. And that Elon Musk guy who was flogging stuff online 3, 4, 5 years ago, probably he was right. Maybe we need to start wiping out some of our face-to-face sellers. So if you feel you're in that place right now and you're a salesperson listening to this and you feel slightly vulnerable, my advice, and James's as well, will be, of course, maybe it's time to start learning how to sell again. Because if you can get yourself to that place where you are better, or at least different to everybody else out there, so you're not asking those redundant questions like what keeps you awake at night, which is just appalling. If you can find better ways of engaging and helping people, there's just a chance you'll be all right.
Brilliant. I couldn't agree more. And what a great way to to finish the interview, because I think it's so right. We all want people to be successful, but they've got to take it on their own themselves to do it, and they've got to work out that the sales, maybe the route to selling, like you say before, is, you know, is different. It's gone, whatever. You know, there is a new dynamic that's going to come up, and you know, the quote I put on LinkedIn this morning, which was scary actually, which is, you know, and I'll read it out because I didn't realize this myself actually, but it was what was someone saying to me, which was let me read this out because I thought it was not great for webinars, but it was great. It said, so Yale School of Management estimates that between 50 and 75 of the current Fortune 500 will be extinct by 2027.
Wow.
50 to 75% of the current Fortune 500 will be extinct by 2027. So to that point of what you just said here, like about how people are the world is never going to get back. You got to ride with, someone said you got to go with the rocket and jump on it rather than accept that it's, if you don't, the rocket's going to leave you behind. And, and we'll be in that time and wondering, I missed the boat, and it's, the chime is now, isn't it, to get on that boat.
But don't think that you have got to go and pivot or reinvent yourself. You might have to, but as we both know, if you're really good at something, just stay in your lane and be really, really good at it. And there's just a chance that you'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. No, brilliant. Well, look, Matt, it's been amazing. I've loved every minute of it chatting to you. It's been, thank you for your time and giving up the time today. And I know all the people that will watch this will get value for it, because it's about sharing insights and knowledge. And before we go, talk about the book firstly. Have we got when can we expect the new book out? And what's it going to? Have you got a title for it yet?
Yeah, I think I've got a title. It's called Converted, and it really is. It's really sort of bringing together the logical steps of the sale that goes from a lead to a close. Really, I've tried to make it as human as possible. There's no fancy jargon, just basic, simple. Yeah, went off to the publishers last night, so hopefully be out around about summer.
Many congratulations on that. You a lot of people, I've been working on mine, so because I've been saying for too long, people said to me, you haven't got a book. So I know Alex Siri, who will be watching this, I'm sure will be saying he hasn't got a book. So I haven't finished it yet, but I've done 22,000 words. So I'm there. I'm halfway there. I'm getting there.
You're 2/3 of the way there. 30,000 books, all you need. 30,000.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. We'll have a book launch party. I'll be happy to share yours for sure. So look, but Matt, really appreciate your time. It's really great to. And how can people find out about you if they want to get in contact? What's the website and social details? So
jump on.
I'll put them in.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Matt Sykes at LinkedIn. Always on. I'm on there every day. Cool. If you want to look at the website, then salescadence.co.uk. And if you're interested in the podcast, it's the Sales Cadence Podcast.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, look, much appreciated, Matt. Really appreciate your time today. I hope you've got some nice plans for the afternoon and get out in the sun. It's nice and sunny where I am. I don't know if it's nice and sunny in Norwich, where you are at the moment, but it's nice and sunny here. So
it's beautiful, James. I'm looking forward to the afternoon. Hopefully you're going to have a great afternoon too. Just want to say thank you so much for inviting me on. Keep doing what you're doing, mate.
No, we're much appreciated. It's always good to get great knowledge experts in that can share insights and value, which is what I focus on doing. So no, really appreciated. And firstly, most importantly, stay safe, and we'll be in contact really soon.
Cheers, James.
Take care, Matt. Cheers, now. Bye.
So there you have it. That was a video from Matt Sykes. Great guy, really knowledgeable, and I encourage you to follow him in the links that you'll see below, in order to you can see a little bit more about what Matt and his business has to offer. Really inspirational guy, lots of insights, lots of great knowledge and wisdom there, and certainly someone I'd recommend you having a follow and look into, see if you can learn from what Matt's done over his career. So I hope it was useful. If you are a sales trainer, a sales mentor, would love to be in a conversation with me so you can be in the next edition of Sales Conversations with Sales Experts, drop me an email or reach out to monya@jameswhite.business or alex@jameswhite.business, and we'll look to get a time set up where we can chat, talk about your knowledge and expertise, and get you on the YouTube channel as well, so we can share your insights with my audience and those that are looking to get better sales results. Thanks for watching the video. Really appreciate your time. Stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourself, and more importantly, keep positive. We can get through this, and we will get through this with a positive mindset and focusing on what we can achieve. Look after yourself and speak soon. Bye.